Hello, hello, hello. We are back.
We are.
Hello, my name is Best,
And I'm Jeremiah. Welcome to Kings in the Court.
and today we got another great conversation. We're going to be talking about interacting with women, and
Mm-hmm.
and what we mean by that, in particular, to provide more context, interacting with women, whether it's in friendships, strangers, workspaces, romantic relationships, how to or our thoughts on going about courting women that we're interested in, things of that
Mm-hmm.
nature. What's your opinion in terms of like how to go about um, interacting with women? Maybe we can start off with
Mm-hmm.
strangers. What are you
Okay.
thinking?
Yeah. No, good question. How can we interact with women? I guess your first question is as friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess so. I will give my answer in like two parts. From what I've seen in the world, and then also like my own opinion on how we should interact with like women who are our friends.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'll start first with interacting with women who are our friends.
yeah,
You know, the first immediate thing that comes to mind personally
yeah.
is with respect. And I know like that
Yes, yes.
sounds obvious,
Yeah, yeah,
but
absolutely.
in today's society, unfortunately, it's not that obvious.
Yeah,
You know what? I'm actually going to bounce to society real quick. So it is. I do find it weird, or at least in society, and I'm not talking about like every single man, obviously.
yeah.
And I speak mostly specific to like Western society, quote unquote. Though it does happen everywhere.
Hmm.
But a lot of times, men don't really respect women or treat them with respect
Mm,
or treat them with honor.
right, right.
Now, I understand in a sense that like men have done things to women that are not good,
Yeah,
and women have done things to men that are not good.
yeah.
So I don't agree, but I do understand where some men are coming from. If they, or rather, let me word this carefully,
Yeah,
but
you gotta be
you know,
careful
I,
with that. You don't want
but
people coming with pitchforks at
you
us.
know, but I do understand the bitter feelings that men can have
Mm,
when interacting with women based on their previous experiences.
yeah.
I don't agree if they treat them badly, obviously, but I do understand where they're coming from. But
Mm,
to answer your question best, how should we as men interact with women who are our friends in this specific question?
yeah.
I do believe it comes a lot with self respect, with also respecting the other person, honoring that person, as well as self control.
Yeah.
Especially, or in all cases, really.
Absolutely.
In all cases, really. Let me not say especially, but in all cases, really. Um, I actually do want to reference something that I have read multiple times, but it just kind of hit me differently because I guess now we're talking about this topic.
Yeah.
But it comes from First Timothy 5 1 to 2. And just to quickly say it, it says, treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity.
Mm,
Now, from the Christian perspective, so here are my thoughts, and I want to hear your perspective on this best
yeah.
afterwards. But this is kind of how I view it, right? Because there is the believer woman, the woman who is a disciple of Christ and is following Christ, and then there's a non-believer woman who does not believe in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that you should treat either one of them differently,
Mm,
but I do believe that the perspective is different. Because when you do give your life to Christ, you are now brother and sister within the family of Christ. So now, to more directly answer your question, and I'm going somewhere with this, how I should, as a man, interact with women who are my friends is interact with them and treat them like a sister.
mm-hmm.
Now, if I have ill intent or bad intention,
Yeah.
that is weird because they are my sister.
Yeah.
Um, Now, given in the Christ family, you are brothers and sisters in
Yeah.
Christ, and
Yeah.
obviously, like if you're called to marry, you're gonna marry a woman eventually.
Yeah.
So, like she'll no longer be your sister at that point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just strictly friendships, you would treat them as if they're your sister.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily mean the bully your sister type of thing. Though, like,
Mm,
hey, if you do that, if your sister does that to you, it's all fun and games. I ain't gonna speak on that. But to be more serious, you would treat your friend who is a woman
Yeah.
like your sister, with
Yeah.
honor and respect, and with self-control.
Yeah.
There is definitely more I want to say, but I want to bounce the question back to you. What do you think, best?
I agree, and mind you, I think all of this can be like I know we compartmentalize. I think that's the word.
Mm-hmm.
It's like strangers, friends, and spouses or women you're pursuing. But I think you can say it in any case, right? As
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned with the love and respect, right? I think it goes back to in scripture, right? And one thing we always have to remember is that, and I like what you mentioned too, with like listing that one as your sister, right? 'Cause your sister in Christ,
Mm-hmm.
because I think the way how we have to look at it is like that's God's daughter,
Yeah.
right? And if you're disrespecting her, then you're disrespecting the Father,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that goes in the Bible where it says the focus on love, right?
Mm-hmm.
The focus on loving one another, right? And that's a way. The way we love others is the way we love the Father,
Yeah.
right? Um, that's God's daughter, and you have to treat her as God's daughter with kindness,
Mm-hmm.
love, and respect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And going back to even just the scripture, I know this is the famous scripture where it talks about. Um, I know we always look at women submit to their husbands, but the big part of it is I know I'm kind of jumping the shark here, but we spoke about Fred. We're moving a bit forward here, but there's
No
another
worries.
part of it is husband love your wives, Christ loved the church,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I find that I would argue that that might be a more critical part of that because we look at how Christ loved us, right? Christ died
Mm-hmm.
for us. Christ
Yeah.
sacrificed himself for us. Christ gave his life for us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that is the role that us men have, right, with the women in our lives, right? Now going back to just obviously with what we're talking about friendships and whatnot, right? Yes,
Yeah.
I think love, respect, kindness. I think though, and again, it should be a given, as you said. A lot of these are should be given,
Mm-hmm.
but again, there's a lot of instances where people don't really see that or people don't actually go about that,
Yeah.
right? Which is unfortunate, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I think that's a part of our calling, even as men, to lead, right? That's
Yeah.
a part of like leadership is not dictatorship. Leadership is not telling you what to do, right? Starts with loving. Leadership starts with servanthood,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's on us to serve the women in our lives and to serve those around us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that is something that I would say is very, very important. I'm curious, and I know last week we spoke about boundaries,
Yeah.
right? Now, how do you think, and I would like to hear your take on this, how do you think we can, because I know a lot of time when we think of boundaries, we think of like, I find oftentimes has a negative connotation to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But how could we reconcile boundaries with love and kindness, in your opinion? Or or can we do that at all? So I'd love to hear your take on that.
So when you say reconcile boundaries with like love and kindness, can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so like basically when we're setting boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can that be done? Okay, let me rephrase it. How can that be done from a place of love?
I see.
Yeah,
Okay, I understand. Okay.
yeah,
So I'm gonna use the example of, I mean, in any situation where a man and a woman are like hanging
yeah.
out alone, whatever cases, or just in a friendship in general,
Hmm.
I believe where that applies, setting boundaries still with love. I mean, it goes both ways,
Yeah, yeah,
self-respect and respect, and like I'll elaborate more on that. What I mean by that is from the perspective of a man. Let's say you have an interest with that person,
yeah.
with your friend, right? That's a woman, right?
Hmm.
Now, where the boundary and love comes in is because, with our background of being Christian, you know,
Yeah,
the love aspect, the love aspect, how that plays into the boundary is recognizing that, like, okay, like as you said best, like this woman here is made in God's image. She's a daughter of God. She's a sister in the faith. I don't want to do something that, even though like I may be interested in this person, I don't want to do something that will harm them. Well, there's two aspects I'm thinking about it. I don't want to do something that will harm them, and I don't want to do something that will like bring any confusion to them intentionally, because I do know, like, sometimes misinterpretations can happen.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't want to harm them, and I don't want to bring confusion to them intentionally. And the second thing that I want to say is, yeah, the second thing I want to say is just practicing those boundaries. So I do find it, that it depends on the situation. Like, for example, if you're pursuing that woman, then that's different. But if you're not really pursuing the woman and your friends, and let's say you're interested, you don't want to give the wrong impression to that girl. You don't want to put her in a situation where she will be confused or be hurt, because as you said, she is a daughter of God,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
she
yeah.
gonna take it to God.
Exactly.
Ideally, you don't want to be the guy in the prayer that is like, this person hurt me and X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
Now, of
yeah.
course, I do recognize that misinterpretations can happen. So from the perspective of a guy, I believe it's best to act within wisdom there.
Yeah.
Now, it can be case to case. It can be case to case, but to act on wisdom there and to respect the boundaries that is set there. If it's the guy that has interest in the girl, not acting. So self control. We spoke about self control before.
Self-control,
So
yeah.
not acting on any urges, because again, I have to say this. It's obvious, it's a given, but unfortunately, not all. There are guys rather out there that just don't internalize this or clock this. But women also have feelings too. It's crazy enough to believe, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you don't want to go and intentionally hurt someone's feelings. Like, that's never nice. You wouldn't want someone to do that to you.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't do that to others.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, let's say you are a guy and the girl is interested in you. Now, I did speak briefly on this on the last episode. Check that out. But see, here's the thing, right? In today's time, actually, just there are guys that, okay, let me just say this. Guys can do this. I'm not talking about every guy, but guys can do this. But there is a stigma, and there is a little bit of truth to that stigma to some degree. That, like, let's say if the girl makes herself available, even if the guy may not be interested, he may still initiate, or whatever the case is. There is that stigma. In some cases, it can be true,
Yeah,
but in a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of cases, it's not true.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this, like in the scenario where the girl is interested in the guy in this friendship, it is just as important, and I would maybe even argue more important. I'm not too sure yet, to really practice self-control in that situation. It is never right to take advantage of someone's feelings or to take advantage of the situation that they're in. And unfortunately, in today's world, it's like that on both sides, really. But it's like that, where there are guys out there that just, I'm gonna go on a whole tangent. So let me just answer your
Yeah,
question, and
yeah, yeah.
I'll get back to
That's
you.
all
So
good. Yeah.
yes, within the confines of a friendship between a man and a woman, self control is arguably the most important. Well, love is the most important factor, but self control is a very important aspect to that as well. Whether it's there's interest or no interest, self control is very important. Um, and I do want to talk about lust, but I'm gonna get to that a little bit later on. But yeah, that's my answer to you, best.
No, no, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to just communication, healthy communication, right? I think one thing is very important. I think both sides could definitely be better at it. It's like healthy communication to know, make sure you're on the same page, whether it is you want to pursue something or you don't, right? Or whether we're friends, acquaintances, just coworkers and things of that nature, right? And I
Yeah.
think going back to just our last episode on boundaries, and if you have, for those of you if you've not watched that episode, I definitely recommend you go check that out if you haven't watched it already. But with that, I think boundaries also, it's I would say it's a part of love,
Yeah.
right? Because a big part of love is healthy communication, right? Not in a way to put somebody down or to control somebody's actions or words or thoughts, but to just communicate, right? To communicate your thoughts and feelings, and just making sure that both of you are can be aligned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both there's it allows for vulnerability, it allows for transparency, right? Better
Yeah.
transparency, which can further help a friendship or relationship or anything of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not feel guilty about doing it either.
Yes.
Because yeah, like as we're both saying here, yeah, as we're saying here, it is actually it showed there's more level of care when you exercise the boundary versus when you don't. Because like I'm gonna give you just a scenario because it does happen, but
Mm-hmm.
let's say for example, and it can go both ways, but
Yeah,
let's say
yeah.
for example, uh there's a guy and a girl in like a friendship. Let's say the girl is interested, and the girl is making advances or showing interest, and let's say you want to keep it cordial, you want to keep it as friends. It is very important in that situation, and I speak from experience on both sides, but it's very important in that situation to communicate those boundaries as you said best, because that actually shows more care for that person than just like, hey, you know what, you feel this way for me, I don't want to let you down and make you feel bad. It just gets messy from there, so I would argue, that maybe it's not arguments, but like I would argue that you actually show more care for that person when you exercise those boundaries, because it's like, you know what, like I know you're in this scenario, I know that you're interested, but I can't do this to you because I would not be doing you I would not be doing you justice. I'll be doing you a disservice. So yeah, that's just the point I wanted to make real quick.
No, no, for sure, for sure, for sure. I think, and again, I think that's a part of it. Going back to this, the boundary conversation, where it's like a part of it's. I like what you said there. It's not for yourself. It's you're helping each other. You're doing a
Mm-hmm.
service to one another in that sense,
Yeah.
right? I think that helps a lot with that friendship and that communication piece, because you're helping with
Mm-hmm.
that friendship or that relationship depending on where you guys are at,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. There is
yeah,
something that I wanted to bring up, and that's the topic of lust.
yes,
So I do have a couple comments on
mm-hmm.
that, or I have a lot of comments on that, but just a couple here is
Yeah, yeah,
now, in no way, shape, or form am I encouraging lust, but I do want to say that it happens. As a human, we can fall short. Again, I'm not encouraging it. I'm not supporting it. I'm just saying that it can happen. And the point, or where I'm going with this, is that it's incredibly unfortunate that everything is getting sexualized nowadays.
oh yeah,
It doesn't, now again, just because a guy feels a type of way does not mean he has to act on it, but it does not help when everything we see is sexualized. The corn industry does not help.
yeah,
OnlyFans does not help. And unfortunately, that's how society is, at least in Western society, that's kind of how it's portrayed. That men should practice lust, or
yeah,
that they should be encouraged to lust. Because like, I'm gonna give you an example. Like, I was watching a YouTube video one day on like NBA or a video game, something like that, I forget what it was.
yeah,
And then a commercial popped up, and there'll be like a girl in some kind of provocative outfit, and then she'll do some kind of action, and she'll be like, buy this Ferrari. And it's like, what's the relationship between what you're doing and the Ferrari? Like,
yeah, yeah,
what? So like, where
yeah.
I'm going with this is like, why does this need to be put here? Like, why do you have to encourage this behavior, the
Yeah,
behavior of like lusting after women? Because in my opinion, and I want to hear yours after, best, lust is essentially objectifying something, in this case objectifying the woman.
yeah,
And then going back to our previous point of how God created everyone in his image, and in the case of someone being a sister in the faith, you don't want to, and I'm speaking for men and myself, you don't want to bring a woman down to the level of an object, because as you said best, it is disrespectful.
Yeah, yeah,
Now, again, the reason I know I'm like saying these things are bad, and they are bad.
yeah,
But I also recognize that because of the times that we live in, it can happen when a guy falls into that. Now, of course, I'm not encouraging it, I'm not
hmm
supporting it, I'm not saying continuing it, but it can happen. And then
yeah,
the reason why I'm stressing that is because just in case someone watches this and they're like, I did it yesterday, and they start beating themselves up. I wouldn't want to encourage that. It
yeah.
does happen. Of course, I'm not encouraging it, but it does happen.
Yeah, no, no, for sure, for sure. And yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I think, yeah, we live in this society where lust is ingrained in society. It's become so ingrained in society. You could look even in cartoon shows that are supposed to be for
Yeah,
children. The little
yeah.
subtle things that I'll see. I can't remember what show it was. I was watching something. I came across something, and these little things that they do, these little
Mm-hmm.
jokes they put, adult jokes in children's shows, that they're
Yeah,
ingraining children so early in lust,
yeah.
right? And it's as you said, even stuff like that in commercials, right? You see with commercials, right? You see it now with like the rise of like OnlyFans and the corn industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I'm sure you all know what I mean by corn. We can't say it. We
Yeah.
can't say it, obviously, because YouTube, right? But just how much it's because, and obviously it goes back to just with the internet, right? Like obviously the internet has had its positives, but of course it's now had its negatives as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think the key, like what you mentioned, with just how it a big part of it, not only is it's lustful, right? It's self-centered, but it disrespects the creation of God, which being woman, oftentimes,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I think something I would like to think about is that the difference between love and lust, right? And it's in how we interact with what I think particularly. I mean, you could even say with like friends, but I'd say particularly with a woman who you are pursuing, right? What's the difference between love and lust, right? Lust is self-centered. Lust is what can I get out of it. Lust is can I fulfill my desires, my sexual desires in this case, versus
Mm-hmm.
love is what can I do to give to this person, right? What could I do to serve this person? What could I
Yeah.
do to honor and help this person, right? And I think it's very interesting is how you that those differences. Whereas like lust is more selfish and self-centered, and love
Mm-hmm.
is selfless in
Yeah.
giving. And I think love is the true reflection of of Christ, of the
Mm-hmm.
Christ relationship with the church, right?
Yeah.
Um, and again, I think lust can be anything, other thing, but I think lust,
Yeah. Definitely.
particularly with like the sexual side of things, it's a main topic because you think about it, that has been the downfall with many great men
Mm-hmm.
in history, including even those in the Bible,
Yeah.
right? And I've always find that interesting, right? Where it's like the devil, like the enemy, and again, I think I'm just speaking from my like from our as believers in Christ, how the
Yeah.
enemy has often used lust to bring down men, to
Yeah.
bring down so many great men, right?
Yeah.
Just with lust, right? So
Yeah.
I just find that very very fascinating. I think a lot of time we have to check ourselves, and I think as men we have to always check ourselves as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it requires that sexual discipline, but ultimately, I'll speak for myself. It requires to give that to God, right? And knowing that
Yeah.
okay, yes, these thoughts happen, but again, as you said, you don't act. You have to act on those thoughts, right? You give that to God and allow Him to just strengthen you throughout that, right? Just so you
Yeah.
don't become a victim to lust, and ultimately you don't watch things that you shouldn't be watching or engage in that you shouldn't be engaged in, because ultimately our goal is to love the woman around us, to love and protect the woman around us, not to lust after them for our own selfish desires,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, you mentioned how like some kids shows. I ain't gonna say any particular
yeah,
brand name because I'm not
yeah.
trying to get sniped, So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, no, it's very it's unfortunate. It's sad. It's like aggravating. But yeah, like
Yeah,
in some kid
frustrating.
shows, they'll be making inappropriate jokes that it's like, why are we including this here?
Yeah.
But I that's a whole tangent that I'm not ready to go on right now. But the main comments I want to say is, yeah, it's really sad just how prevalent that is in our society, right? It's honestly encouraged. Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
sad.
Oh
It's
yeah.
sad.
Oh yeah.
Like I think of some, like, for example, just some like content that is put out there on online, whether it's podcasts or other cases. There are guys that promote these type of things. Like, for example, they'll say things like, hey, as men, focus on your purpose, and like you shouldn't, like, if you have a girl, like, have multiple, have them on
Yeah, yeah,
rotation, or
rotation, all
just
that.
have multiple girls.
Yeah.
I did hear a really funny take, not funny as in haha, but funny as in what is he saying. But I ain't gonna say no names, but this guy was essentially saying that, like, guys, like, you shouldn't be living with your girls. Now, as a believer, I'm gonna let me say assume I will support when he says living with your girl. He means wife, but obviously he didn't really mean that. But anyways, going back to my point, he was saying, hey guys, you shouldn't live with your girls. You should live with other guys, because if you live with your girl, if you live with your girl and your girl wants to cuddle with you, that can make you lazy. And I was like,
What? Oh,
I'm just
bro.
like, what is happening?
What?
But yeah. But the main point of why I brought that up is because, unfortunately, there are a lot of guys out there that push that type of
Yeah.
agenda out, that, like, women are essentially just objects,
Yeah.
to desire, objects to just gain pleasure from. And it is disrespectful, as we've been
Oh yeah.
saying,
Oh yeah.
to bring a whole another human being to that level. I'm just gonna quickly quote Galatians 3:28. It says, "There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you're all one in Christ Jesus." So it pretty much says that men and women share equal value and standing before God. So what lust does really is that we're bringing someone else's value to a level of an object just to please ourselves. So going back to our original question, we spoke in lengthy detail about how you should treat a woman in a friendship. It is incredibly important, and I speak for, like, myself and just men in general, but it's incredibly important to practice that self-control. And then also, with respect, just treat that person with respect. I would even argue that and I'm not saying this in a sense that, like, I have the answer, but I would argue that we should even interact with women as if they're our sisters. That's may help in how men interact with women in general, but I mean, obviously that's not really my place to say, because I can't speak for every guy. So yeah, no, Bess, I have a question for you.
Yeah. What's up?
Let's bring it to, like, the applicable real world level, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, not you in this example, but let's say there's a guy out, like, there's a guy, and he goes to some event, or just goes somewhere, and he meets a woman. What would you say? And there could be multiple correct answers, quote unquote, but what would you say, or how should a man interact with that woman in that scenario?
I mean, are we talking from the context of that he's interested in her, like pursuing her, or just more so from an acquaintance or friendship type of thing?
More so the former, but you could provide both if you want to.
Okay, okay. So I'll start off with like the relationship side of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he sees a woman that he's interested in, I think he should go up and talk to her, right?
Mm.
And not from like a set, and obviously do it in a respectful way, right? You don't have to, like, be inappropriate, but just walk up to her, start a conversation, right?
Yeah.
If she's interested, then I would recommend you plan a day that you guys can hang out or spend some time together. If she's not interested, respect her decision and just move along, right?
Mm-hmm.
Out in the friendship side of things. Now, of course, if you are interested in pursuing a friendship, yeah, I think it's still good to build that friendship. But even in a relationship, I think there always is important to have some sort of friendship, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously, in like a romantic relationship, it's not just the intimate side of things. There's also the friendship side of things as well that is very critical in any sort of relationship, right?
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, I believe as men, it's important for us to state our intentions, right? If you don't have
Yeah.
any intention, right, then obviously you don't have to be pursuing anything from a relationship or romantically, right? Even though you could still, if you still stay in contact and build a friend, like have them as an acquaintance or a platonic friendship, that's fine,
Yeah.
right? But if you are romantically interested, I think it's important to communicate that, right? Express that, right? And pursue that, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
she is open, if she's interested, then I think it's important for both of you to pursue that. And I think it's important, especially as the man, to be the one to lead that interaction,
Yeah.
right? As the man, it's important to be the one to get the ball rolling in that, right? And at
Mm-hmm.
any point, if she's not, if either of you are no longer interested, I think it's important, as we mentioned, to communicate that,
Yeah.
right? And communicate that and respectfully just go your way. It doesn't mean you have to be enemies after that. Like you can still be acquaintances and friends, but
Yeah.
you don't have to pursue anything romantically if both of you are not, if both of you are no longer interested in one another
Yeah.
for a romantic level,
Yeah, you just
right?
reminded me of like some like you see these
Yeah,
skits sometimes, though it
yeah,
does happen in the real world where it's like a guy approaches a girl, is like, hey, you look good, I'm trying to
yeah,
get to know you,
yeah.
and then the girl will be like, oh, I'm not interested, and the guy's like, ah, well, you're ugly anyways. So when you're
Yeah,
saying like, oh,
yeah,
it doesn't mean you have to be like enemies or ops afterwards. That's what came to mind. I was just laughing, but
yeah.
but
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a part of like even being confident, where it's like you obviously you're interested, you want to get to know this person, right, and
Hmm.
see if you guys are a good match and you can continue forward. But if you aren't, right, then that's totally fine, right? That's
Yeah.
totally fine. You should still be grounded in that reality that she might not be as into you, or you might realize later you might not be as interested in her anymore, which is fine, right? Which is fine. I
Yeah.
think as long as both parties are respectful and mature about it, I
Hmm.
think that's totally fine.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah.
even just going back to our previous episode, like we spoke so much on communication, and
Hmm.
this is definitely where it applies to, right?
Mm.
If both people come together genuinely with the goal to communicate, then a lot of times, like, yes, it can be hurtful or painful, but a lot of times there's a better resolution compared to like
Mm.
one person trying to communicate or none really trying to communicate properly.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, no, I want to ask you a very popular question,
Let's
Best.
hear it. Let's hear it. Let's hear
Do you believe that guys and girls can be friends?
it. Oh boy, that's the hard question. That's the hard
That's a hard
question.
question,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. Okay, actually, believe it or not, see, I used to be of the opinion that they couldn't. I think
Mm-hmm.
as time has went along, I do believe guys, men and women can be friends. I do believe
Okay.
so. I do believe so.
Okay.
I do believe men and women can be friends, right? Having said that, now here's a caveat. Having said that, a few things I would say.
Mm-hmm.
First, in my opinion, yes, it's okay to have friends of the opposite sex, but in my opinion, I don't think. And again, people might disagree with me, but this is just my opinion. I
Yeah.
don't think friends of the opposite sex will ever replace friends of the same sex,
Yeah.
right? Like for men, right? Obviously having female friends is good, but they will never replace the brotherhood I have, and vice versa. It says with women, you can have male friends, but they can never replace the sisterhood
Yeah.
that you have, right? That's number one. The second thing, right? You can have friends of the opposite sex, but I do believe there should be boundaries in place when you are in a romantic relationship.
Like, okay, just to clarify, when you're in a romantic relationship with them or with someone else?
No, somebody else.
Oh, with someone else. Okay,
Somebody else.
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, for example, I'll give myself an example. I'm in a relationship, right? I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
be hanging out with any of my like, female friends who I have. I will probably hang out with them in groups, if anything,
Yeah.
right? I'm not
Yeah.
going to be going out one on one for dinner or lunch or anything like that, right?
Oh,
I won't be
why
hanging.
not? Why not, Best? No, I'm playing. I'm
You're talking.
playing.
Oh my
Let me not get
gosh!
you
I
in
know
trouble.
before someone says I'm insecure. Don't call me insecure.
Yeah, oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. But no, what was I gonna say? Yeah, no. The thing is, regardless,
Mm.
I lost my train of thought here.
Oh,
But
you're saying not to like go out for dinner with like a
yeah,
female
exactly,
friend, yeah.
exactly. Like the same. Like I'm not going to be hanging out with my female friends the same way I'm hanging out with my brothers, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be going. I'm not going to be going out for lunch or dinner with my female friends if I'm in a relationship. Just as much as I wouldn't expect my woman to be hanging out, going out for lunch and dinner with male friends without me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an expectation I have. I'm sure that's an expectation she would have, right? That's and I believe
Yeah.
it goes both ways, right? So I
Definitely.
do believe that yes, men and women can be friends, but I do believe that certain boundaries should be put in place when you're in a
Mm-hmm.
romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
That's
like
my
the
opinion.
answer.
What do you think? What's your
Yeah.
take?
So I do. So I do believe, like you, I do believe that guys and girls can be
Yeah.
friends. Though I also do believe that most times it's difficult. And not
Okay.
necessarily from a self control perspective,
Right.
but
Right.
more so because naturally, we're naturally inclined to be attracted to one another.
True.
You know, like
True.
men just have natural attraction to women, and women have natural attraction to men.
Mm.
So it can be complicated
It
in the
can be.
sense
Yeah.
that let's say their intention is to be friends, on both sides. But like if y'all are hanging out a lot together, feelings or emotions can develop. But you
Mm.
said something wonderful that I want to just um, tap into, and that's the boundary aspect.
Mm.
If you and or her don't have the intention to pursue something serious with that other person or with her, then that I mean either way boundaries should be put in place. But like if
Mm.
there is no intention to pursue them, you know, boundaries should be clearly set in place. Do I
Mm.
believe that you can hang like if you're a guy, can you hang out with a girl who's just your friend one on one? I believe it's possible.
Mm.
However, I believe it's definitely possible. However, just there needs to be communication, as you said, and just
Yeah.
like on the same page that this is what it is.
Mm.
This is what this thing is that it's a friendship, and that should be made clear at some points, right? So to more bluntly answer your question,
Yeah.
I do believe guys and girls can be friends,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think a lot of times is difficult because of that natural attraction.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's fair.
but
That's
yeah.
fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Hmm.
Do you think now? Let me ask you a follow up question. Do you think that
Yeah.
largely depends on if they perceive they perceive their friend to be physically attractive?
Honestly, like, see, that's a
Or
great question
yeah.
because I feel like the natural answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also seen and heard situations where, like, they were initially not attracted to each other. Or,
Mm-hmm.
you know what, maybe it's one of those, like, egg before the chicken type of things. I don't know. But,
Mm-hmm.
but I have heard and seen situations where, like, they're initially not attracted to each other. But then all of a sudden, now they're dating or someone's interested, and I think it's just because of like the time that is spent, and then maybe it's like the time that is spent with one another, and maybe it's kind of like a realization, like, yo, this person is actually kind of cool, maybe X, Y, and Z, So I feel like the natural answer is yes. It's because there is some kind of level of attraction, but I've seen and heard situations where the parties involved are convinced that there was initially no attraction,
Yeah.
but it really could be like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Maybe internally there was some attraction that they just didn't really admit or recognize, and maybe
Mm.
that's what happened. But what do you think?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. That's because I have heard situations like that where it's like they were, oh, this person's like a brother, like a sister to me.
Mm.
We're not attracted, and a couple months after you hear they're married. It's like, oh
Yeah.
wow, interesting, right? So
Yeah.
like I think it depends, right? It does depend, but I
Mm.
I do believe even in those cases you can say like sometimes that is possible, right? Because I would argue that attraction is not just physical. Like, yes, like physical does play a big role, I would say,
Mm.
but for some people, it might not necessarily just be physical.
Yeah.
right? It could just be like the friendship they have or the connection that they have, right? Or how they relate to one another in some cases,
Mm-hmm.
right? And again, your attraction is relative, right? What that
Yeah.
person might deem as attractive, somebody else might not deem as attractive, right?
Yeah.
What society deems as, or what that person might deem as attractive, it might differ across other people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it largely depends in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, even attraction does not even necessarily have to be like physical attraction. It could
true.
be I don't know if my mic's picking me up, but it could be mental attraction as well. But a question I wanted to ask you, Best, is because we spoke about how men should interact with women in friendships. Does that differ from like in an actual relationship, and what differs? There might be multiple aspects, but you can just name a couple.
Say it again.
What's the so as men interact with women in friendships, does the interaction does that differ from like how you would treat a woman, or yeah, how you would treat or interact with a woman in a friendship? Does that differ in like courting slash fiance? And if it does, how does it differ in terms of treat in how you treat them?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Like I think it's similar in the sense that yes, like you treat them with respect and love. And at the end of the day, they are still God's daughter, right? Even
Yeah,
the person you're courting, right? And I mean, from a biblical standpoint, technically we're all single until we're married,
yeah,
right? So, in that sense, yes, like obviously you treat with love, respect, that friendship's important. But I think what's different is terms of the intentionality, right? The intentionality, and that in the first sense, you're not necessarily in pursuing anything romantic, right? In this
yeah.
sense, you are pursuing something romantically, right? You're pursuing something romantically. So I do believe that you do want to go about it a bit differently, right? A bit
Mm-hmm.
differently, right? In terms of just letting your intentions known and just going about leading that relationship, leading
Yeah,
that interaction, right? Not from like a domineering way, but just letting her know what your intentions are, right? And being respectful, loving, and just clear about that,
mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm about to ask you a pretty obvious question, but
okay,
I do want to give, I guess, everyone listening just the just like a perspective or an idea. But
yeah,
like, how would you ideally not treat a woman? I know it's so
yeah,
like I know it's so
yeah,
obvious,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like yeah,
Oh, wow, where to begin? I mean, we pretty much touched up on most of it, right?
yeah,
Not be disrespectful, not treat them as objects. Women are more than just physical, right? Not just treating women as if they're physical objects, right? Which is
yeah,
basically the foundation of lust, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah, like just knowing that again, ultimately, God's creatures, God's creations,
mm-hmm.
right? And the more as you did is you disrespecting, right? Being disrespectful is
Yeah.
you being disrespectful to God in hindsight, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Got you.
What about you? What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, like as you said, I guess
Yeah.
some things I would add is now I hope, and I'm optimistic,
Mm-hmm.
but I hope that there will come a day or a time or an era where, and I speak generally, this does not apply to every man
Yeah.
obviously, but generally speaking, men won't treat or look at women as objects.
Mm-hmm.
Will that happen? By the grace of
By the
God.
grace of God, by the grace
By
of
the
God,
grace of God.
anything's possible with Christ.
And amen to that.
Yeah, yeah.
But the way society is going right now, I do have my concerns because it really is
Mm,
pushed, is encouraged. It's put, like we said, it's put in children's shows.
yeah.
Even just some of the content creators or just like major faces publicly. A
Mm,
lot of jokes or even gestures are made that like support or encourage that. I
mm,
was seeing, yeah, I saw this ad, right?
mm.
Little side tangent, but I saw
All right.
this ad where they were promoting condoms, right? But like,
Mm,
it wasn't even necessarily in like a stay safe type of way. It was more so of like, we make condoms for all sizes, and they were kind of making a joke of the guy having for lack of better words, not much to work with, you know.
Yeah.
So just kind of putting that stuff out there, it's like yes, I agree. If you're going to do it, which I'm not supporting outside of marriage, but if you're going to do it, yes, be protected.
Yeah.
But what's the, like, why are we twisting it in like a humor type of way?
Yeah.
Further pushing this and encouraging this when there's already too many broken homes, already too many broken relationships. There are men that don't trust women, women that don't trust men. Like, why are we further just dividing each other? But anyways, that's a whole different conversation we can get into.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one thing I want to talk, a bit of a side tangent as well. I know
Yeah.
we touched up on it. I think with going back to the topic of lust, we, and it's sad because I think a lot of times people connect lust. So I'll say a lot of men connect it to as a measuring stick for how much of a man you are. Right? How many women
Speak
you
on
can,
that.
how many women you can bed, how many, what's the term I heard, I used to hear is what's your body count, or it's that what they, I think that's what they say now, right?
Yeah.
And it goes back to just how we view women, right? Where it's like, they're more than just bodies for your own count.
Exactly.
Right? And I think we have distorted what it means to be a man, right? Because true leadership, what it truly means to be a man is having discipline, having sexual discipline, right? And that's why you see like even like the rise of like even just different things such as like semen retention and no fap and things like that, right? Where it's like, even though I won't say like I fully agree with everything per se, but like I do understand, I do agree with like the main idea of it, which is controlling that, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of agree with it, but more so from like a spiritual, like a belief Christian lens of it, in the sense that that is something that we should be giving to, in our opinion, is giving to your eventual wife.
Yeah.
Right, your eventual wife.
Yeah.
Right, and not as a means to show how much of a man you are, or to rack up your counts or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, like the inclusion of, you know, being so concerned about body count, and also just like and also just the stuff that's like put and like pushed out there. It's what these things do is that, I mean, it affects everyone like mentally, but just because we're talking about men, but it affects men mentally to the point where it's like, when you go about your everyday life, if you're consuming a lot of these things, then you start viewing people in the same way, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very difficult to dodge it because it's being pushed in society a lot, but it is important. And I'm backing up with like scripture here, or I'm speaking from a Christian perspective. It is important to be very careful about those things.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. But I don't know if you have any further comments on this, Best, but I just want to just quickly drop like some of my final notes on this.
Of course.
You know, for how men can / should interact with women. You know, there's with equality, you know, within Christ. Even if you're not a believer or a Christian, you know, men and women are equal before God, you know, regardless of what you believe in. So, you know, treat women with equality, or treat women equal to as if you treat a man. We spoke about love and sacrifice, you know, honor and respect, purity and self-control. And we briefly touched up on partnership. But do you have anything else that you would like to say or comment on?
No, I think we touched up on a lot, right? Just love, respect. Just, again, not allowing our treating with love and not with lust, right? I know lust is a big, has been a big enemy, a big battle that a lot of men have faced.
Do you wanna tell us a little bit about Samson, briefly?
Samson. Oh yeah, where do I begin? Where do I begin? Yeah. So for those of you who don't know the story of Samson, Samson was the strongest man. He was strongest man ever, right?
Yeah.
And his power was in his hair, right? His power was in his hair, And I'll just give a bit of a bit of a short summary. Basically, his power was in his hair, and he wasn't supposed to mention it, but Delilah, she kept trying to get the secret out of him,
Yeah.
and eventually he gave in. He told her the secret, which was the hair, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually cut it off, and he lost his power. And
Yeah.
why did he tell the secret? Ultimately, lust.
Yeah.
Right? We can go on and on about so many other men who lust the Bible, who lust was ultimately I don't want to say their downfall, but it was a big it almost led to their downfall. You look at
Yeah.
King Solomon, you look at even
Mm-hmm.
King David,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm sure there's other people in the Bible who I can't if I can't think for the top of my head, but
Yeah.
it's empty. Even look at today, right? Even look at men today, like famous guys, men today, who lust is a lot of times their downfall, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You look at all the things that are happening, right? It's very you look at even I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on here, but should I can I say this? I don't know. Like it's a famous person. I don't know if I'll get canceled for it.
Hey,
But
just don't get sniped, bro.
okay, 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 okay,
No, it's up to you. It's up to
okay,
you.
okay, okay. Yeah, so the Shannon Sharp situation, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I heard
Shannon
about that.
Sharp, right? Um, like despite him being a well-known sports anchor, football player, right?
Mm,
Sure, he still has enough money, but getting this a lot of stuff he lost just because of his lust, right?
yeah.
We won't speak too much about that, but if, for those of you who don't know what happened with Shannon Sharp, just feel free to look it up. Feel
Hmm.
free to look it up on your own time. But yeah, it's just something we gotta continue to pray about, and by the grace of
Yeah.
God, we're gonna be victorious. We already are, and I think it's important as
Amen to
men to
that.
be aware of that and not allow that to to bring them down, to be their downfall, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll leave it there.
Okay. I appreciate. I
Yeah, no
appreciate. Do you
worries.
have any final notes for our guests before I close?
No, I think that's about everything. Again, and I'd love to hear what's your take, for everybody watching, right? If you have any comments, any questions, drop it down below in the comment section. We'd love to hear all your
Mm-hmm.
opinions. We'd love to hear
Yep.
all your takes, things you might have agreed with, things you might not fully agree with, respectfully, of course. Things you might not fully agree with. We'll love to hear all your thoughts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, just I know we spoke about this in lengthy detail, but yeah, we just can't really emphasize enough. Like, yes, we're human and we can fall short, but
Yeah.
we can't really emphasize enough, when interacting with women as a man, really just consider like honor and respect
Yeah.
and self control. At the end of the day, they are a human being too with their own feelings, and it's just not right in so many ways to take advantage of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you, Bess, for wrapping us up.
No
If you have any
worries.
further comments, drop them down below. Thank you once again for visiting King's Inner Court. I am one of your hosts for today, Jeremiah.
And I'm best. We'll see you guys next time. Take care,
We'll
guys.
catch you guys next time. Take care.
Peace.